Welcome, everybody. I think it's the first time I've seen the first tee with nobody on it. Again, thank you for coming. I know that we have a lot of the faces I recognize and some new faces out there. And for the new members, welcome. Our participation at the club, and I'm not blaming this on the new members, has been off the charts this season so far. It's been a regular occurrence every year that we would have a couple, 200 round per day on the tee sheet. Now it's a daily event. Used to be able to show up at 1:30, 2 o'clock and just walk out there, and tee sheet now is from 7:30 to 4:30. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's just something that, you know, we will manage, and we're working on how to manage that. What we need to manage is the condition of the golf course, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But not only golf, but the tennis participation is up. We recently had a sold-out tennis event. It's the first I've heard of a sold-out tennis event. And if somebody knows different, let me know. Spa treatments. There was a point where I thought maybe spa treatments we're going to be here for a long time because there wasn't a lot of participation. But spa treatments are up. It's a robust business for those folks, and it's nice to have them on property to provide us that service. Dining at the clubhouse, the new veranda, and Crystal Lake, again, is off the charts. Last Tuesday, Crystal Lake served out of that small kitchen 300 meals. That kitchen was never built to service 300 meals in a day. This past Friday, if you tried to make a reservation for the clubhouse for dinner, you may have been turned away. The veranda was 100%, inside was 100%. So we've never seen that before. And all of this is being done with the same amount of staff that we've had. So for those that were here Friday night, I heard that maybe service was slow, but you can imagine why. So that's a staffing issue that we're working on. We've been working on it since actually May. I'm going to let Dawn talk about that later. But keeping employees and attracting employees, we all know through the media, has been a difficult task. I'm not sure how much COVID has to do with it now, but Jimmy lost 3 employees to a restaurant in downtown Naples, paying $22 an hour to bus tables. He's since replaced those employees, but as you can imagine, it's difficult to find employees that want to work. So some of the ways that we're going to start to manage that today is, if you are going to dine, please make a reservation in advance so they know how many people are coming. And you can be assured when you show up that you're going to be sitting down. As far as the golf course goes, again, I mentioned we want to manage the wear and tear on the golf course. So please pay attention to the ABCs of golf etiquette. Fill your divots, fix your ball marks, rake the trap. There's somebody behind you. So please rake the trap and use the 90-degree protocol when you're in a cart. The carts that we have are lithium battery carts, so they're 300 pounds lighter than the traditional golf carts. So that has helped. We've had them for a couple of years now, but that helps with the traffic on the golf course. But anything you can do. Matter of fact, about a month ago, the Pro Shop sent out a communication asking players not to push their speed carts between the bunkers and the greens. And I'm happy to report that I think the majority of the membership has taken that to heart. And I often see someone catching themselves, backing away and going around. So it's that type of thing that will help us manage the traffic on the golf course. So what's new at Eagle Creek? Quite a bit. The most notable is the golf course renovation. I'm going to ask Alan Anthony to the green chair to talk about that later in more detail. We've completed the veranda expansion, which included the purchase of new ceiling fans, furniture, and soon to be delivered umbrellas for every table. So I know that it's sunny out there, and the umbrellas will help with that situation. We built a new water station. You may have saw that. When we changed the grade, we attempted to lift the old water station, and it fell apart. It was all rotted out. So we poured a new concrete pad, built a new water station, made it a little bit larger, and we have a new water and ice dispenser on order. We painted the exterior of the clubhouse, the cart barn, the turn, and the 2 water stations. And I like the brighter color. It makes the clubhouse look bigger. I don't know if anybody had that same. Oh, good. Thank you. You know, a lot of members involved in that decision, and I like the choice of accent color. I think it was a wonderful change. We installed new lighting on the clubhouse and the cart barn, and we are going to be installing landscape lighting soon around the exterior of the clubhouse and the cart barn. And we also installed the Verdin 4-sided post clock that we all see now next to the putting green, which I think is a handsome addition to the club. From what I hear, the membership is happy with the improvements and are happy with the investment that we've made. I do hear at times, you know, we don't need to do these things. You know, we're fine with what we have. And the phrase that really gets me is, it's good enough. So this brings me to the message that I want to leave with the membership today, if you don't remember anything else. Before we can talk about club investment, before we can have the club investment conversation, we first need to understand the power of a culture that says continuous improvement in everything we do is going to make this club a successful club in the future. The notion that something is good enough is not in the conversation of successful companies, people. We don't say that. It's good enough. There's some great examples of cultures, companies, people, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that. The Japanese word kaizen means change for the better and small changes over time. The Japanese use this philosophy to build the industry that they have today. Successful companies never say it's good enough. When IBM introduces a new product, they set up 2 conference rooms. One has a cake on a table, little plates, little forks, and they celebrate the unveiling of the new product. When the party's over, they go to the second conference room that has chairs just like this, and a whiteboard, and a coffee pot. And they start the work of putting that product out of business, because they realize that what satisfies customers today will not satisfy them tomorrow. So they start that work immediately. Continuous improvement is immediate. And then there's the successful people that say it's not good enough is not good enough. My favorite story is the story of Tom Brady. We all know who he is. This was back when he played for the New England Patriots. He was in a press conference, and this fresh-faced reporter stands up and says, "Tom, what would you say is a successful play?" So I guess the reporter thought Tom needed help answering this question. So he gave him some options to choose from. He says, is it this quick slant for 3 yards? Is it the run up the middle for 5? Or is it the touchdown pass? Tom thought for a moment, and he said 1 inch. Place went quiet. The great Tom Brady said that a successful play in the NFL is a 1-inch gain. It's what he said, but it's not what he meant. What he meant was, which he goes on to say, if every play I move closer to my goal, it's a success. That's a guy that's saying, I'm not staying where I am. I'm going that way, no matter how much it takes. So where am I going with all this? The board believes that successful companies, people, clubs, recognize that standing still is not an option. Continuous improvement today, tomorrow, and every day is the trait of all successful organizations. It's often said that if you're not moving forward, you're falling behind. The board believes in this statement, and if we can all agree that good enough is not a strategy for the future, we can start the discussion on investment in the future for this club. The country club industry of Southwest Florida is a very competitive business. We compete for members' dollars every day. This isn't the first time you've heard this from the board. In August 2021, I wrote a letter to the membership, and I want to read you the paragraph that's relevant to what we're talking about today. It goes, "A bright future requires investment today. Whether we realize it or not, Eagle Creek is in competition with neighboring country clubs in Naples. The list of area clubs investing in their future continues to grow. Capital improvements to clubhouse, golf course, tennis facilities, pools, and dining facilities, particularly outdoor dining, are happening at a staggering rate. Their motivation is simple. Capital improvements ensure top-notch facilities that will attract new dues-paying members to financially support the operation and capital needs of the club into the future." Simple business 101. Why does the board believe this? All the opinions and decisions made by the board are data-driven. Where do we get this data? Well, we start with the surveys to the membership. That's why it's important when you get a survey that you complete it and get it back to us. That tells us the club that you want here, and it's our duty to deliver that to you. RSM, that's our accounting firm. They have a very robust database from like-kind clubs throughout Florida that we can tap into. And through those numbers, we recognize what other clubs are up to, what their investments are, what their dues are, what their capital is. So that's important information as we make decisions for this club. The Beekman report, that report covers wages, salaries, club expenses. So again, we find out where we fall on that scale. Trade publications. The Boardroom magazine, which the board receives every 2 months, it's published 6 times a year, is a terrific source of information from industry leaders across the country. It's been in publication for 25 years, and I've asked Dawn to include copies of that magazine in the club's library for you to take a look at. It covers everything. You know, you'd need to dive into several issues, but if you want to know something about how country clubs should be run, that's a great magazine to, I mean, it's not a page turner, don't get me wrong, but we belong to a consulting firm through a subscription called Club Benchmarking. Club Benchmarking is a firm that guides private clubs by providing facts. We all have opinions, but what are the facts? Their extensive database includes best practices in the area of club governance, club operations, strategic planning, industry trends, and more. What I like most about Club Benchmarking, they're based in Boston, is I can pick up the telephone and call them and talk to them about an issue that we may have here at the club. And they'll direct me to someone within the organization that can help answer that question. So again, always searching for the right information to make the right decisions. I used the term best practices just now. For those of you who are not familiar with that term, best practices is this industry's tenets on the right things to do and how to run a proper club. I'll give you a couple examples, several examples of what best practices are. One is, best practices is you have 9 members that'll sit on a board of governors. We have 9. Best practices is you have 3-year terms. We have 3-year terms. Best practices is 3 people roll off, 3 people roll on every year. Best practices. And another best practice is you never have open contested elections. There's hundreds of stories of the divide that causes within a club. So that's come up in the past. People have asked that question. The other thing that we do to gather information is we take road trips. We visit other clubs in the area and we talk to their general managers, CFOs, club presidents, and they tell us how they see the industry, how they see what customers are looking for or members are looking for now and into the future. In a recent meeting I had with a club president of a club here in Southwest Florida, I'm not going to tell you where these places are, by the way, so don't ask me, all right? Because they speak to me in the strictest of confidence. I can tell you the story, but I can't tell you where I got it from. So this course is going to shut down and do a $14 million renovation next summer. And they've just come off 2 years ago spending $23 million on a clubhouse renovation. So those numbers kind of get my attention. I don't know about you. So I say, how do the membership take these spending, the spending that you do? And he said, what do you mean? I said, do you get pushback? He says, oh no, I don't get pushback. I said, how does that happen? He said, because our membership recognizes that it's the quality of the facilities we have at the club that support the value of their homes. Similar club to us, homes, apartments, villas on the property. So we've had many conversations in the past about how to raise the value of real estate here. Now, we've had a once in a lifetime phenomenon that's happened. So, but I believe that it is the quality of the facilities that will maintain the value of your home. We know that when prospective buyers for property come here, they visit the club first. If the club passes the test, they want to see the house. If this is a mess, they move on because there's a lot of great choices out there. We drive by them every day. They're well landscaped. You never see what's behind there, but I've had the opportunity to be at most of them. And one thing they don't have that we have is a phenomenal golf course. I mean, you cannot say enough about the bones of this golf course, the layout. So to invest in the club is to help with your, in my opinion, your real estate values. Your board is convinced that investment in the club facilities needs to continue, and a culture change from it's good enough to a culture where members demand continuous improvement in everything is necessary to have a successful club in the future. Continuous improvement includes facilities, but it doesn't stop there. It goes to your dining experience. It goes to golf operations. It goes to tennis operations. It goes to everything we do. I've had a wonderful opportunity to be able to speak to the staff, similar to how I'm speaking to you right now. And I say, you have to ask yourself the question, do you want to be here? That's the first question you have to ask yourself. And if you want to be here, how do you be the best you can be? How do you come to work today and do a job knowing that you're going to be better tomorrow and you're going to be better the day after? It takes training. That's on us. And we'll get them the training that they need. But we want to make sure that everything we do, that we're paying attention to the smallest detail, because that makes the difference. Everybody does the big things good, but it's the small things that make you different. With that said, the board strongly recommends to the membership that the next capital improvement investment needs to be a refresh of the clubhouse. The Board of Governors has teamed up with the architect, Dave Humphreys. Dave did the last renovation here. He's the fellow that introduced all the wood that you've all fallen in love with. We've hired the Wegman Group to work with us and Dave Humphreys to develop a plan. Well, the first step is to have, as you will get tomorrow, you'll get a letter on your email or whatever, introducing you to this clubhouse refresh team and a series of workshops. I think they're over 3 days. There's 6 workshops a day, and I believe they're an hour long. And Dave Humphrey will be there. The Wegman Group will be there to hear what you have to say. What are your thoughts? What would you like to see in this club? Now, we have some survey information from the last time we went through this exercise, but we do have a lot of new members, and we want to hear their voice. We want to hear your voice after a couple of years have passed. You've seen what continuous improvement can do with the veranda expansion. That's been, from what I hear, a big success. I know I like it, but it's not about me. And this project of developing a plan for the renovation of the clubhouse isn't about one member, it's about your collective voices. So it's important that you participate in these workshops and have your voice heard. So at that point, I'm going to turn this over to the chair of the Finance Committee, Kurt Holloway. Oh, I've got to do some other stuff, I guess. Don't mind me. I'm new in town. First, I'm going to announce that we do have a quorum.
We have a quorum.
I already knew that. We're going to approve the minutes of the annual meeting from 2021. Do I have a motion? Second? All in favor? Aye. Okay. And I'm going to introduce the new board nominees, and that would be Reed Halverson, who's sitting right in front of me. Reed, stand up so they can see who they're looking at. And Marianne Smith. Is Marianne here? Oh, there she is. Great. So you probably noticed that there was only 2 people that stood up. Okay. You know, this wasn't my idea, okay, to continue on. I was approached by a member of the board and I said, I really enjoy being married. I don't want to do this. And then I got, I was approached by 2 members of the board and I said no. And then the nominating committee came to me and so I started to give it some thought because we still have work to do. And there's a lot of, you know, intellectual property up here that is lost when you walk out the door. And it's one of the challenges that all golf and private clubs have is when presidents turn over, a lot goes away during that turnover. And we have too much momentum. So I asked them to give me a couple of days to think about it. And it was really, I needed the couple of days to get up the courage to talk to my wife about it. I don't know if you know this, ladies, but all of your husbands are afraid of you, okay? So don't let them tell you anything different. So obviously she was okay with it, so here I am. Departing governors. I'd like to recognize Deanna Serrano, who is our secretary, and Shirley Russell, who is our tennis and yeah. They've had enough of me for the time being. Kurt. Oh, you're next. Don, you're next.
We'll try to make this great. Hey, you know, the sound's a little bit better. We've been working on this for months. And the main problem we're having right now is one of our boards are fried. So we've had to jerry rig things, but this allows us to have 3 microphones going simultaneously. And it allows us how many people are on Zoom right now? They're 32 and they're seeing this screen and they're hearing us. So hopefully they're hearing us loud and clear. What I wanted to do is talk about what we did this summer. The staffing issue isn't really a joke and it is happening everywhere. It's not just here. Can you go to the Gantt chart? So I was in panic mode, full blown panic mode in May about what we're going to do this season. So what we did is myself, Cassie, Laura, and the food and beverage managers, just about everybody, we put up a Gantt chart, just like you would with construction, to see where we are, how many days we'd go out to make sure everything was covered. And we met every Friday at 2 o'clock. When we started, we were just putting in ads on Indeed, Craigslist, started in May. We didn't hire anyone till August. Oh, I'm sorry. We didn't even interview anyone till August because nobody applied. So now I'm really panicking. And we did crazy things. Can you advance it once? We did a postcard, 5,000, and we sent it out to the area zip codes, demographically looking at who we could recruit. Of those 5,000 postcards, we had 0 response. So can you go to the next one? So then we thought we'll go poach some people. So we sent Cassie, Claire, Gina, Nicole in groups of 2 that would go to different restaurants, sit at the bar, have some appetizers, see if they could snag anybody. I even gave cards to Mr. Hipskin because he was going out. He goes, yeah, I'll help you. 0 response. So now we're in huge panic. And then we have the H-2B program too, where people from other countries come in and fortunately, right now we have 9. But that didn't have any traction until almost September. But we got that many people in. And so those are the things that we were working on. We weren't sitting on our hands. And recently we hired 3 people. We're 0 for 3. 1 didn't show up. 1 quit after like 4 days, and the other one just stopped coming into work. Then we hired another lady who's still here, relatively new, so we're hoping she sticks around. So this is what we're up against, and Jimmy's up against the same thing over in golf maintenance. So I just wanted to let you know that we're doing, and anybody else have any ideas, feel free, because we've gone to FGCU for college days. I still call it Edison College, but we try to snag anybody we can. We have the trailer for the H-2B people, which is just south of Walmart. And then we have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath apartment that we're renting to keep H-2B, or house the H-2B people. And now, okay, there's one more bad news. Not that this isn't enough. Rents are skyrocketing in Naples. Our sous chef has been told that his rent's going to go up $700 a month in August. We have other people here who are renting. Thank God Cassie's smart enough to buy a house before the boom. And there's a few people that have bought houses, but now I'm concerned, not just of line employees, but what are we going to do to retain management staff? Because that's a hit at $700 a month. So that's what we're up against now. All I can say is we're still a good place to work. People like working here. We have dedicated employees. It's just, how do we get more? The facilities does help. The way people are treated does help. And we're not alone in this. All my buddies in the club industry are doing the same. Well, I'm not sure they're doing things like we are to recruit, but they're in the same boat. They're all stretched out. And that can be, just name a club, I can tell you they're experiencing the same thing. So that's the update. The good news is we are busy. Everybody's busy, but everybody's working hard. They're getting a little crispy, a little short sometimes, but it is working out. And now we'll get to the exciting stuff.
Hi, everybody. We do have great staff, don't we? Okay, I want you to try to relax. All right, I understand you're on the edge of your seats because you want to know what happened with the audit. Just take it easy. I'm going to talk about that in a couple of minutes. So, all right. First thing I want to do is recognize the Finance Committee. You see the names on the screen there. Ken Porter, Mike Sweeney, Jim Smith, Gary Condit, Rob Frick, David Gerard, Gary Young. Thank you for your time, your investment of time, and your wise counsel. Appreciate it. And then Sue and Claudia in the office do a great job, and Don and all of his team. So I want to thank them for their work. Okay, the first thing I want to do today is just give you a little Club Finance 101. Just give a little overview on this is actually a repeat slide from last year. But we've got a lot of new members, and I just want to remind you how our finances work here. So when you get your quarterly billing and you've got the line that says dues, then you've got a line that says capital contribution. That dues line is the number that funds the operations, the day-to-day operations of the club. It takes about $6.5 million a year to run this place. And so that dues is what helps us balance that budget for operations. We always budget operations to come to zero. So we want revenues and expenses to equal out. And I'll tell you how we did last year in just a minute. On the capital side of things, that capital contribution goes to fund things such as long-term asset additions, payment of debt, payment of capital lease obligations. So we have 2 sources of funds there. We have your quarterly contributions, plus we have initiation fees that fund those sorts of things. We do not commingle those funds. So we keep operating funds and capital funds very separate, keep those segregated. So that's a little bit how our finances work. Okay, how do we do this year? Now I'm getting to the good stuff, all right? The audit. We had a fantastic year financially. Recently, the board and the finance committee approved the audit. We met with the audit firm and went through it. They issued an unmodified opinion on our October 31st, 2021 financial statements. There was nothing of interest in the report. They provide us with a report that talks about, were there any disagreements? Were there any adjustments? Were there significant issues? Everything was clean as can be. The audit report is posted on our website. I think it's under the resources tab. So if you're having trouble sleeping, pick that up. Okay, so some of our financial results for the year. We achieved an operating surplus of $79,000. Now you recall, I mentioned we try to hit zero. So being within $79,000 on $6.5 million budget isn't too bad. I felt pretty good about how we managed the budget this year. We came within about 1% of our revenues. So that's what happened on the operating side. Some other highlights for the year. We generated about $2.4 million of capital cash from new members. So the way that happens, because I've had a few members come up to me and say, gee, I think we've generated $5 or $6 million of capital this year. It's not really how it happened. But we did generate about $3.8 million of gross membership joining fees. And the way that breaks down is we had about 50 members pay the $55,000 initiation fee. We had about 32 members come in as socials and they paid $25,000. And then we had 7 folks that converted from social to golf and they paid an additional initiation fee as well to do that. All those transactions, which is about 90 people, totaled $3.8 million. Now, a number of those folks had refundable equity that we owed them as they left the organization, and that totaled about $1.4 million. So we netted about $2.4 million to our capital cash reserves this year. So it was an outstanding year. Just to give you an idea of what that means, 2.4 million. Last year, so the year ending October 31st of 2020 was the highest year that we've ever generated in terms of the capital cash, and it was about $780,000. So this year was over 3 times that amount. So it was just phenomenal. Another thing I wanted to highlight that I think really bodes well for the financial future of the club is we were able to pay down that $1.4 million of refundable equity. So our refundable equity now is under $8 million. I think when I started as treasurer 5 years ago, it was about 13 million. So we continue to chip away at that and we have made really good progress. And I think that is really good for the long-term financial health of Eagle Creek. We did borrow $2 million on the golf course project, which we told you about, I think last year at this meeting, as well as I think we sent some communication about, but we were able to obtain financing on that $2 million from the bank. And we've got 8-year repayment terms on that at 2.63%. We were to lock that in and fix that interest rate by using an interest rate swap, actually. So I think that's very positive. We were able to take advantage of the favorable market conditions and do that. Last year's speaker at this event, Phil Newman, who's a partner with RSM, who leads their club practice division, talked about membership equity and how he likes to see that number increasing every year. We increased our net assets, or our stockholders' equity, if you will, by about $3 million in this last fiscal year as well. So that was very positive. So I think I put up there our conclusion. It was a good year. It was a great year. It really was. And we're really in good shape. Okay, next. What the heck? I thought I was talking about finances, but while that's up there, fill your divots, repair your ball marks, rake bunkers. And 90 degrees doesn't mean the temperature, okay? 90-degree rule. Obviously we made significant capital investment this year, and a lot of it's still in progress. So we're still tabulating some of the numbers, but I can tell you that the wall project along Collier Boulevard, which includes a lot of things other than just the wall, and we still have some work to do on the inside of the wall, the club side of the wall is a little barren, but we'll get to that. That came in at about $932,000, and that was what we had pegged it at. So we were right on budget there. The cart barn and the water station upgrades that Mike mentioned in his comments came in at about $160,000. And the clock out here, which I think is fabulous, came in at about $30,000. Okay, just a couple of quick benchmarks. RSM, our audit firm, provides us with some graphs and some charts at the end of the engagement. And they use their database because they do about every club in the state of Florida. So our peer group is Southwest Florida non-bundled golf private clubs. So they tell us that last year our dues were about $2,000 under the average in Southwest Florida. This is very much what I tell you every year. We are always under the peer group in terms of our averages. Our expenses per member, which in my mind is a bit of a measure of our efficiency. And then the food and beverage subsidy, that amenity costs you less than it does at the average club in Florida. Of the $10,700 dues, $1,500 supports the food and beverage operation. Hope that makes sense. And then capital assessments, we're in the ballpark there. We're actually a little under average, below average. And our joining fee last year was $55,000. Now we've increased that to $65,000, but the average Southwest Florida was $83,000 last year. Okay. One of our initiatives this last year was to develop and publish a long-term capital plan. Capital, okay? So remember I talked about operating and capital. So now we're talking on the capital side of things. So we did develop this plan and we published this plan in November, and it's on the website, and we announced it at that time. And I did get a couple of comments about it, and I appreciate those folks that have looked at it. The first step in the process was we updated the reserve study that we've had done about every 3 years by Drew Isaac and Associates. So what they do is they come in, take a look at the facility, they look at all of our assets and determine over 30 years, what our costs might be to replace all these assets. From that, the management and board teams developed a 10-year capital spending plan. We did an inventory and looked at each year what we thought we were going to spend. Also included in the plan is sort of our debt service and our capital lease obligations. So those financing things are part of the capital plan. And then the toughest thing is sort of to figure out what are we going to generate in terms of initiation fees, because it's a wild card. Last year, as I said, last year was 2.4 million, but our average over the last 11 years is closer to 400,000. So we've made some assumptions in our plan in that regard, and we've used very conservative assumptions. I think we'll easily beat them, but I think conservative is the right approach. Fiscally responsible, I guess. So this plan isn't something that's concrete. This is something that is be revisited from time to time, but it's our roadmap. So we felt it was important to get it out there and have you see what investments we're looking at over the next 10 years. Okay, last thing I'm going to cover just real quickly is sort of how we're starting out the new year. So November 1, we started a new fiscal year. We're off to a good start. Our operating variance to budget for the first 3 months of the year is favorable by a little over $100,000. And as Mike mentioned, club usage is off the chart. So those revenues, those golf revenues, are driving our favorable variance, because as Mike also mentioned and Don alluded to, we're seeing pressure on labor. We're seeing pressure on our other prices. Inflation is hitting us. So we'll see how this plays out. For the first quarter, though, we've done well, and we're in good shape. We are seeing continuation of strong initiation fees. So Laura provided me with some information, and on the books so far this fiscal year, net capital cash is closing in on 800,000. So I don't see us doing 2.4 million, but we're going to have a strong year for sure. I mean, we're at this point, again, looking at north of 800,000 in that regard. And that's just part of the way through the year. So I think the thing that slows that down is inventory. There just isn't much on the market right now. People aren't aren't leaving. So not that I want them to leave, but the other thing that I mentioned is we just paid off the Crystal Lake note. So we had borrowed some money 5 years ago to finish Crystal Lake, and basically was to finance the members that elected the 10-year installment plan to pay for that. So we're still collecting $99 a month from, I think, about 40 members. So we'll continue to collect that. That, even though we've paid off the note, those funds will be used for capital purposes. And that's all I got. So let me turn it over to our green chair. You know him, you love him, you can't live without him. Alan Anthony.
The golf course project was a huge undertaking that involved not only the green renovation, but also new irrigation, drainage, green surrounds, bunkers, a completely new driving range, short game area, a larger practice putting green, and 1,400-foot wall along Route 951. The driving range teeing area was increased by over 50% and is now 40,000 square feet. Elevated target greens were installed along with new drainage and irrigation. A state-of-the-art GPS system was also installed for each target green. The practice putting green was raised 2 to 3 feet, to allow for proper drainage, and the area was increased from 6,000 to 9,000 square feet. We now have an expanded event area with electrical access next to the putting green and a proper place for the event scoreboard. In addition to the above, some of the other course improvements completed included rerouting the cart path on holes number 1, 3, and 5 to allow for better landing areas, a new bulkhead around the expanded tee box on hole 7, a new back tee and rerouted cart path on hole 11, all new tee boxes on hole 12, including a new back tee. On hole 13, all tees were realigned and leveled. The fairway bunker was, the fairway bunker was lowered for better visibility of the green. The lake area was enlarged. The fairway humps on the right side were removed and trees were planted to better frame the hole. The 18th hole had a bulkhead extension installed. 9 new silver tee boxes were relocated and sodded. Hundreds of new grasses were planted and the wooded areas around the course were cleaned up and covered with pine straw. In the same time frame, the cart path at the rear of the clubhouse was raised 2 to 3 feet to avoid seasonal flooding and allow proper drainage. All the concrete was removed and new pavers were installed, bringing a much needed facelift and improving the overall view. A new 4-sided 16-foot Verdant clock with night lighting was also installed. The cart path was rerouted and we now have a beautiful grass area with the possibility of additional seating area. Also accomplished was the refurbishment of the cart barn, which included a new floor covering, new bag racks, new lighting, new work tables, updated ventilation system, and a renovated bathroom. As with any large project, there were challenges, setbacks, and surprises. The challenges came with the onset of COVID and the resulting delays in supplies and transportation of goods. Irrigation heads, pipe, seed, and sod were some of the many shortages. A major setback occurred when a 36-inch drain pipe that ran from the 6th fairway through the 7th tee and next to the first hole was discovered to be completely disintegrated and had to be replaced. One of the surprises was the fact that 2 greens, number 15 and number 17, that were rebuilt over 20 years ago, were done so right over the existing green. All of the old drainage lines and greens were still buried under the existing green. This required additional time to deconstruct each one of them. Despite all the improvements over the years, the course at Eagle Creek has only been closed in the summer 6 times since 1999. We believe these accumulated improvements add to the overall enjoyment and give added value to the membership. I would like to thank the membership for their patience. And in conclusion, I believe Eagle Creek has a course with vastly improved greens, better playability, better conditioning, and a better golfing experience. It is the intent of the maintenance and pro shop staff, the Green Committee, and the Board of Governors to continue to improve our course each and every year. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Okay. I'm going to go through a couple of topics that come up occasionally, and I think they should be addressed. What's the first one? You can never say I shy away from controversy. All right. Let's talk about the logo. So the genesis of the project was the recognition that the club had 5 logos. So we put a group together that included the staff, our professional staff, the marketing chair, and we hired a graphic designer who is arguably the best golf course graphic designer in the country. I know his first name's Lee, but I can't pronounce his last name. And his work is, you see his work every time you watch a major tournament, Ryder Cup, US Open, and alike. So the group set off to first of all, to improve the logo. Obviously the logo that everybody liked is the one on the top right. My first thought was when they said they didn't like the new logo, they liked the old logo. I wasn't sure which one they were talking about, but it's the one on the top right. So the work started, and the group worked probably collectively 100 or 200 hours on trying to deliver something that was new and vibrant and something that the membership would really like. I know that they took a course of doing it secretly, if you want to use that word. And it was for a reason. And if the intentions were good and they wanted to make a big splash, which they did. But the notion that nobody saw the logo before the general population saw it is not true. When the development process, towards the end of the development process, the logo was shown to every committee within the club. So the finance committee saw it, the golf committee, the green committee, the strategic planning committee. So they all saw it, and that was kind of our test group. That was, hey, what do you guys think? What do you gals think about this? So that's what happened. And obviously it fell flat, but I have to say, there were some people that really, really loved it. They were like, God, this is beautiful. I hate that old logo. So, but you can't die on every hill, okay? So our position is we continue to work with Lee and his company to clean up the logo that we have. If you talk to Jeff or Katie, it doesn't embroider very well. I was able to show that to some folks that asked me that question a few weeks ago. We're trying to clean up. I don't want to use the word modernize, but I just did. The silhouette will be the same, but we'll try to clean it up so it looks better on clothing, embroidered hats, those types of things. So we haven't given up the ship. We want to deliver something. And there was a rumor that we were paying $30,000 for a logo. The rumor was we paid $100,000 for the clock. So what's the next slide? Oh, there we go. So the logo, which included all of, and I'm not going to read it to you, it was $9,000, which we are still in process. So, but it included branding package, new vector files for printing, and for embroidery. I'm not a graphic person, but it went far beyond delivering a logo to the club. So that is what that costs. What's the next slide? Oh, we already talked about that. Everybody like the clock? Is that something that everybody? Okay, good. Good. Glad you like it because we threw the box away. All right, what's the next slide? Oh, and this is the price of the clock. It's was $29,800 and something. far cry from 100,000. Transparency. Let's talk about transparency for a minute. I hear this a lot. I hear about, the board needs to be more transparent. We listen, and we heard at a meeting last year that you wanted a long-term capital fund, which we did, and we've published. And so you have that. But what I want to stress is, if you want to know something, ask. There are no secrets. There's a lot that goes on. There's a lot that makes this place spin. And if you have a question and you don't know the answer, get in touch with me. Reach out. We'll sit down, as I have done with several members that had questions. We sat down just one-on-one and talked for an hour. And the thing I realized through those conversations is they learned something and I learned something. So the transparency issue is not an issue. It's you need to come and see us. We'll publish what we believe you need to know. But if you want a deeper dive, we can do that. It may include you doing some homework, because a lot of the decisions we make, as I said earlier, are data-driven, and they're not straight lines. And sometimes it doesn't make sense. It isn't like, 1 and 1 equals, 2. Sometimes it equals 3 or 4. So I may be forwarding you some documents for you to read. And then once you read them, we'll sit down and talk, because then we can have an intelligent conversation about it. So I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. If you want to know something, come see me.
We need to use the microphone because of all the people on Zoom.
This is probably more directed at Don than it is you, Mike, but you mentioned about the 300 meals that were served at Crystal Lake last Tuesday night. My personal experience is every time I go there, if I don't get there before 4:30, I don't get a table. And I know, based on my observations like yours, Don, this last Tuesday, it was packed, which is great for us, okay? And I was just wondering if there's any consideration being given to increase the number of tables, maybe even over on the other side of the pool or something. So, because I know a lot of the members left when they couldn't get a seat. I know some of them left with carry-out meals. Maybe that's why you're able to serve some more meals than actual people sitting down. But I was just wondering if there's any plotting and scheming about how to fix that.
That one, the more tables you add, the more people it takes. So, and then it has to do with the kitchen being able to get out of the food. That little kitchen puts out over 100 meals by 6 p.m. And we're still delivering a few meals. So it is efficient, and it's doing far more than we thought, far more. To add tables, just on Friday night, we had people sitting at the high tops that we couldn't get to for even a drink. We're re-engineering everything for Friday night, so you'll see it, but make a reservation. Many tables are already sold out. Again, we increased the capacity over 30% by opening the veranda, and we increased our staff by 0. So mathematically, it just doesn't work. The only way we can really make it fly is to get more people, and that's my major focus, and everybody here that works here as department heads. Somebody said, stay open later. We are looking at that. And just so you know, this last pay period, which is the first week of February through the 15th, we had 967 hours of overtime. 440 of that were food and beverage staff. We can push them only so far.
Mike, I'd like to know if the board has established a projected budget and timeline for the refurbishing.
No, we're working on that right now. We do have one bid in, and we don't have a plan yet. So it was just kind of a stick your toe in the water. This is kind of sort of what we're planning on doing. And so we have a sense, but I'm not ready to talk about that because I haven't had time to review it.
Are you exploring both assessment and or financing?
I don't know yet, but thank you.
Please keep us updated throughout.
Oh,
the
yeah, sure,
process.
of course.
Dawn, is what you're saying, if you had more staff, you'd make more tables available to us?
Yes.
Thank you.
How about having just more tables so people could sit at them instead of standing over the people's shoulders that are sitting?
But what happens there is they'll say, can you get me a drink here? And then all of a sudden you're decreasing service levels.
Okay.
It's tough, but what a great problem to have. A year ago or 2 years ago, it was COVID and we had to limit the amount of people. And by the way, on that Tuesday, the busiest we've done is about 186. That night, we did 234 dinners. And that kitchen, we never thought it could handle that many people. You know, and that tiny little kitchen had 4 people on the line, a dishwasher. That line is from me to Mrs. Finnerty away from each other. That's how long it is. A dishwasher, Chuck on one side, because we have to make our own. We didn't expect to have hot wells, so we have chafing dishes for like the beef stroganoff. We're doing things we never thought were possible or even that we should do.
Can I ask a question that has nothing to do with the presentation that was just given?
Go ahead.
Sure.
A few years back, it was stated that they were going to raise the eagle out front so people driving by or coming in can see it. They were going to, I think the concrete, they were going to enlarge the concrete.
Mhm.
Is that project still being considered?
That would be an HOA
Oh,
issue.
okay.
In the front, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And when we talk about training, there's a few things that Mr. Sweeney talked about is Ms. Serrano, we have a little group that we have advanced training on every Friday at 9 o'clock till 10. And there's a group of people who want to advance their career. Mr. Sweeney has spoken with them, Mr. Porter, Ms. Serrano, and Jeff Jackson, just before the invitational, I had him come in and talk about what the golf area does and the importance of knowing people's names. These folks were just glued to him for like 40 minutes. So not only can he hit a golf ball, but he can speak to his staff real well also.
Mr. Sweeney, when you redo the finalization of the logo, after all, for the doing the redecoration of the clubhouse, you've had your focus groups. Are you going to present these 2 things to the membership for our vote or approval or not?
I think I've learned my lesson.
I'm sorry?
Of course, of course. Yeah.
One thing from several of us, please don't touch the wood.
We've heard that. We've heard that.
Is it possible to explain what the renovations are for the tennis courts? Are pickleball courts being installed? If so, where's the location?
There is a plan to replace the tennis courts this summer, starting in, I think, May or June. And there is the thought at this point, we need to finalize that plan, is to move the tennis courts several feet closer to the clubhouse, if we want to call it that, the tennis clubhouse, tennis shop, which would give us additional room behind the tennis courts towards the llama farm, which would give us adequate space to build pickleball courts. But let's not get the cart before the horse here. There's a lot of work to be done. We're investigating how we can have a sound mitigation. I don't know if that would include different type of equipment that's being developed. So we're going to dive into that. But at this point, we've made a provision for it. And if you've looked at the long-term capital plan, there's $154,000, I believe, or on the plan to build those courts. And it's 4 years out. And we put it 4 years out. Remember, this is a living, breathing document. We can move things around. If for some miraculous reason they came out with silent pickleball, we would be able to do it immediately. But we know, data-driven, remember, we know that communities throughout our neighborhood here, Southwest Florida, have put them in and taken them out because of noise. We want to make sure we do it right.
Mike, the logo, back to the logo. Maybe I'm old fashioned, but I think that was the ugliest logo I've ever seen. We have a lot of people here. Maybe if you pointed at one or another and another, people would vote sort of just as a
Which one was the ugliest one you've ever seen?
upper right-handed one.
Yeah, that's the one that the membership, that's the original. That's the one that people have, fallen in love with. And but we're gonna try to, we're working on it, and you're gonna see it before we do anything. So everybody's voice will be heard.
Could we
Peter?
t-
Crystal Lake was never built to handle the capacity for last Thursday. We've just built a beautiful patio here that's more than capable of handling the capacity. So why don't you just move Thursday night back here?
Yeah, that would be an operational decision.
We are having Thursday night here at on the veranda. We have a special menu for the veranda, and last Thursday was our first night that we were running it, and we expect it to grow. We opened it just before the invitational. So we're still, it seems simple, a table here, a table there, but it's how it flows. Trying to get trays and people through those skinny little doors, especially at that far end where everybody clusters and there's a group trying to navigate through, especially this Friday. We learned a lot, learned a little bit more last night because there were a lot of people out there, but we weren't trying to serve food out there either. So, but it's a process that we're going through. We're sure putting our time in. That's all I can say. And it's awesome. It's just, do we want to do things the right way? Mrs. Freeze.
My house is directly behind the tennis courts
Mhm.
where the pickleball is going to go. So when you start doing that, come see me, okay? The biggest complaint I would have would be if you put in lights. There's
Okay.
no way we could sit on L&I after, when you entertain
Right.
5 or later with
Uh,
pickleball
yeah.
going on.
I can guarantee you that there's going to be a lot of discussion before anything happens back there.
But come see me.
Okay, you got it. Oh,
I was talking to other clubs about their tea time, the same issues we have.
sure.
And what some of them are doing is restricting the number of regular guest fees or guest.
Sure. Yeah.
They've let the family alone, but restricting regular guests on the, on the
Like
golf.
till after like 10 o'clock or
I don't
you
know.
can't,
Oh,
no
some of
Fridays
them
or
are
Saturdays.
restricting the whole thing for the whole day. Just only allowing a certain amount.
Yeah.
And others are doing it by times. You're right.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. Could
There
you
was
hand
a-
that off to Mr. Matson?
And there was one question from Mr. Oros that came up. He wanted to know why the financials, the audited financials weren't posted. We were waiting till after Mr. Holloway did his presentation and then we'll post those tomorrow.
Right.
Another quick question. Do we have a timeline to start up on Friday, Don?
We have a timeline. It's so confusing right now, so I can't give you a specific timeline. But right now, I can't give you an answer because after last Friday, keeping staff was key. We don't want to start something and have people quit 2 weeks into March. And now we're further in the hole because there was that frustration. I'm not sure how many of you were in the food industry, but after 40 years, I can see it in their eyes. And I can only haul so many trays of food and deliver so many tables myself, along with Steve and Nicole. Nicole, Steve are taking tables in between. By the way, it's not unusual what we're doing. All my buddies in the club industry are experienced the same.
Is there a time schedule? Is there a time schedule for the clubhouse remodeling and update?
Is there a time schedule for the clubhouse remodel, update, refresh, whatever we're calling it? You're going to get a letter tomorrow, as I said, that's going to start the process of workshops. And we'll be taking that information and getting a concept plan together for the membership to review. And Ken, when do you think that we would be ready to show something to?
Well, the plan is to have concept drawings based on where we think the membership wants us to be at this point from the last go around and from survey results that we have to show to the members at the 3 workshops that are coming up. So we very much encourage you to attend those workshops and to sign up for one of the 3 days. Like there's 6 workshops a day for 3 days. So there should be plenty of opportunity for, I think it's a Thursday, Friday and Saturday for those workshops. And you'll see design concept of where you think we will, where we think you want us to be at this point. And then there's going to be lots of discussion and opportunity for the members to be heard on their ideas about what they want to see in the refreshment of the club. That will then turn around more drawings and renderings for the approval by the membership in a vote, in the form of a vote. That would be in April. And then if it's approved, then there's a long process of putting together construction documents that can then be bid, and then permits be applied for, and then the start of the construction. So it really wouldn't be until the spring of 23, probably April of 23, where any work would progress if it's approved.
I think it's in the interest of the membership that we save money for the club. And my point is, I wonder why we have the regular little lamps around the parking lots, around the entire development here, lit up way into the daylight, let's say about 2 hours after sunrise and at least nearly 2 hours before sunset. I think it's a total waste. And usually there's a timer to set it and adjust it to the appropriate thing so that we don't unnecessarily waste our money.
Yeah, thank you. That's an HOA issue?
And it cannot be raised here or what?
No, I mean, this is the club. So I can pass that along to the HOA, but I can't speak, directly to that.
Yes,
Calista?
Mike, I do have a question about the staff, not the staff, the committees for inside the interior design of the club. Will we know who's on those committees? And how do you get on those committees?
Currently, there's 5 people on the committee. But the bulk of the design intent is going to come from the architect and the interior design firm. The 5 is myself, Lillian Kovecchio, Rebecca Krimsky, Eric Walbert. I was asked to chair the committee. And so I reached out to them and asked them if they would participate. Yes, they do. Yeah, but most of the interior decorating is, I mean, the final decisions are going to be generated by the membership through these workshops and the interior decorating firm.
My first is a comment, and that is regards to the reverberation of the clubhouse. And I was wondering, as a Canadian condo owner here, and having just lived through COVID for 2 years and not having a golf course in the last little while that we've been gone, I was wondering if we could push this back a little or take small steps, maybe do that room and then this room and then that room. I don't know if that's an option. And my first question is, I'd like to go back to that Eagle logo. The lady in the front suggested you put that screen up again, and perhaps with this audience, we could have a show of hands or clap as to which one we like, if that would be a possibility. Because I have to agree with her that the one that was kind of submitted or selected, I think doesn't do our course justice. That's all I have to say.
Well, we're going to work through improving the logo that has been part of this club since its inception, and everybody's going to see it. And we're going to, at that point, decide if that's the direction that we're going to go in. But at this point, we're well into that project, and you'll hear more about it, and you'll have a voice.
Will the refurbishing include the required improvements to like the front for fire?
Yeah, the porte cochere being too low.
So it'd be more
Yeah.
than just refurbishing. We will have some.
There'll be some
Remo-
construction. Keep in mind that we have a roof. I don't know how many people know this, but we have a roof that the original clubhouse was the heavy Cedar shakes. When that failed, the contractor, obviously the club, decided that they didn't want to incur the expense of taking the shakes off the roof. So what they did was they cut 2x4s and made them 2x2s and created grid work up there, put sheathing on top of that, and then put the roof that you see on top of that. So we had Crowder Roofing come in, remove a section of roof, because we do have roof leaks. And we know we need to replace the roof. But you can reach in there after a good storm and grab what seems to be oatmeal, wet oatmeal, and it's the cedar shakes that are rotten under the roof that you're looking at. So when we get a leak here, it may be a hole over there. So we recognize that we need to replace the roof. No denying that. And when we do that, it has to be incorporated into a new porte cochere. And when we do that, we know that we need to cover the veranda to give you more shade. So, and we pre-planned the covering to the veranda. There's actual columns that are in the cement floor. And it's ready to receive steel to carry that roof that will go over the veranda. So, so you're going to hear a lot. I don't want to, be a spoiler here. But
Um,
so,
For our friends on Zoom, the gentleman from the renovation committee is Ken Porter. And then we have to make sure the microphone is, when people speak, they use a microphone. He's only listed.
That is correct. There's 4 members, myself included. There was 5 members, but one has since resigned.
There's another message. Do you know how thrilled Cassie and I are right now that this actually worked and the microphones aren't giving feedback? It's been 15 years that I didn't have something that fell apart. Okay. And if it wasn't for Cassie, none of this would have happened.
is that it? All right. Well, thank you for coming. I appreciate it. We all appreciate it. And reach out again, if you have any questions, reach out.